Right guys, so we've got 3 weeks to go until Comrades 2024. This video is going to be mainly aimed at the taper for Comrades, but you can apply this to any kind of a taper where you've been training for a long period of time and put a bit of decent effort in, and you therefore will be needing to recover in order that you can race fresh. So yeah, the principles are pretty universal, and you can apply it to anything, you know, even if you're running a 5 or 10k that you put a decent training block into. Obviously it will differ a little bit depending on the length of your race as to the sort of intensity of sessions though. But for Comrades, you know, you should be having put a really big block of a lot of mileage in with lots of sort of level 2 base work. And the accumulated fatigue of all the time that you spent on your legs, you need to give your body a chance to recover. So you should be taking a full 3-week taper. Yeah, you could actually consider the 4th week a taper week, considering that your peak should have been between 6 and 5 weeks previous, and then you would cut down your long run on that sort of 4th weekend to go. But now 3 weeks you definitely are considering cutting down. And well, the start of the story is that the bad news is that with 3 weeks to go, your week should be a pretty standard week. There shouldn't really be too much change. You should stick to the same template that you've been using for the previous number of weeks. Maybe if you do a midweek longer run, you should cut that down by just a few kilometers. You know, you're only going to cut that down by sort of 10 or 15 minutes. And whatever your intensity session is, you know, whether you're doing hills or just flat intervals or whatever, you can maybe cut 1 or 2 efforts out of that. But basically, you're only going to be considering sort of a 20 or 25 minute cut down during the week. The difference in your sort of, with 3 weeks to go, that weekend, that will be where the difference is. So in the training block, you should have been doing quite a few back-to-backs and getting sort of 3-hour runs in with another sort of hour and 45 to 2 hour 15, maybe even 2 hours 20 or 2.5 hours, to give you sort of your typical weekends of between 50 and 60 kilometers with 2 runs together. But that's going to change quite significantly in that weekend. I would suggest no longer than about 2.5 hours. So for most runners, that's going to be no more than 25 kilometers. Obviously, you can go on time. So depending on how fast you run, you can run to time, which should make it more universal. But for most of us, that's going to be no longer than 25 kilometers. And then your other run on the weekend, you can also cut down, and you can do between sort of maybe an hour and 15 and an hour and a half. So for most of us, that's going to be no more than a sort of a 38 to, if you're a bit of a faster runner, it might be a 42 kilometer weekend, but certainly no more than that. And if you are feeling a little bit fatigued, you can definitely cut it down and maybe even just run it sort of an hour back to back with your sort of 2.5 hour run. There is nothing wrong with doing that. In the 2nd week of taper, you are going to start to make some changes. You will start to drop your sort of steady midweek runs, but don't drop your quality session. Keep that one and keep it the same as it was the week before, but stick to the same sort of type of sessions. Don't do anything different in terms of intensity. Don't suddenly start to run faster. Just keep to the same type of session, and maybe drop sort of one of your runs that might have been sort of an hour or just over an hour. Maybe drop one of those and get an extra rest day. You still want to keep up your cross training. So if you're doing any gym or anything like that, you do really want to keep that up. That'll help your hormonal systems to feel like you're still active, and it'll prevent that sort of detraining effect. The one battle that you will have to fight if you aren't experienced at doing this is that psychological battle. I promise you, tapering is the right thing to do, and once you've done it a few times and you have a bit of confidence in it, you will gain that confidence. You just have to be confident enough to try it the first time and have that experience. So yeah, that 2nd week of taper, you can start cutting down, and then your weekend, your longer run, I would suggest, you know, an hour 45, maximum 2 hours. And again, I would probably drop that extra day and not run back to back and get an extra rest day, so that you've got 2 extra rest days. And then that will take you up to 1 week to go. And then with 1 week to go, I do compete in some other sports that are also endurance type sports. And with many, many years of experience across many disciplines, I have learned and have gained confidence in hardly doing anything in that last week. You know, once you've passed 8 days to go, there is absolutely no physiological benefit in doing any training. So what I do is, in the week leading up to the race, I go for 2 runs. One's a 25-minute run, and the other one is only 20 minutes. I try and take 2 consecutive rest days between those. Well, prior to one of those runs, I'll take 2 consecutive rest days, and then between those 2 runs, 2 consecutive rest days. And then the day before, I will do a very short I'm actually active for no more than 15 minutes, but my the mobility routine that I do is, really the meat and potatoes of that session. So I might be out of the door for 45 minutes, but I'll only be running for about 15 minutes, and I'll do that the day before, and just do a lot of the kind of exercises and mobility work and stretching and all that kind of thing as part of the session. So I'll run for 5 minutes, then to warm up, then do a bit of mobility, do some very gentle stride work up and down, stop and do some more mobility, and then eventually work my way back home. And that will be, so total 3 runs are totaling an hour of running time in the week leading up to Comrades, and that, along with some other things, normally has me fresh for any major endurance event. But along with that is obviously the need to pay attention to recovery. So you need to be really focusing on that rather than training during the taper. If you have any aches and pains, it's better to rest for a few days while they are still aches, or maybe even a bit of fatigue, to allow that to recover, rather than to train an extra day and then be sitting with an injury that could hamper your training. Then you really need to focus on a couple of important things. So eat well. Make sure you're not skipping meals and that you're getting the right nutrients out of the food that you are eating. Just bear in mind that you're training less, so your demand for energy will be less. And during the bulk of your training, you can pretty much eat what you want and you won't put on any weight. But just be aware of that, but don't under-eat either. And make sure you're eating good, real food. The other thing is sleep hours. So make sure that you're trying to get into bed 30 minutes or an hour early. It's a really good idea to keep your wake-up times nice and early so that your diurnal rhythms are in sync. You'll be used to getting up early with all the training that you've been doing. So keep that, but just try and get to bed a bit earlier so that you can get a bit more rest and a bit more recovery. And keep up the cross-training. If you're doing any swimming's really good. The hydrotherapy flushes you out. But whatever cross-training you're doing, keep that up until about 10 days to go before Comrades. It can also help with that feeling that you're not training and not getting fitter, just psychologically, but it's taking the impact off your legs, which will help you recover and help you to feel fresher. And then aside from that, just let me check my notes. You just really, with the sleeping and the eating, what you're trying to encourage your body to do is you're trying to encourage your brain and all your hormonal systems to just keep doing the right things. Those are all things that you won't really notice and things that are happening in the background. So you really want to provide all the right nutrients and rest so that all those fatigued systems can recover, so that when you're standing on the start line, you are giving yourself the best chance possible to get a good finish and have a good day and not be dealing with the fallout of your long training lead up. It is a battle, and once you've done it once and you've done it well, you will gain a lot of confidence in it. So if it is your first time or you've never really got a taper right, just have some courage and give it a try. The science really does back it up, and give it a go. Particularly that last week, just as a percentage guideline. With 3 weeks to go, you're probably doing about 70%, maybe 75% of your normal training volume, not your peak training volume, your normal training volume. Then you'll cut that down to about 40 or 50% with 2 weeks to go, And then, as I said, the last week, there really isn't actually any point in training from a fitness point of view. You're just trying to keep mobile. And then, yeah, don't be afraid to do other things like ice baths, massage, stretching, mobility, anything that you find that has helped you in the past with recovery, include it and do lots of it. Right, that's pretty much everything I wanted to speak about. I'm going to do one more video prior to this year's Comrades, and it will be primarily aimed at helping your seconds or whoever's supporting you on the road. So you can look forward to that, and yeah, I'm still on track and looking forward to seeing you on the road in 3 weeks.